How can creating a podcast about charity become a great business move? And are you the right person to work with us in Great.com? These are 2 questions that we will find the answers to today.
Are you questioning if I should work at this company?
Yes, obviously.
Oh my God. Okay, it's time to perform. Let's do a good introduction. Today's episode is an update episode. And if you're new here, that's basically me and my good, super friendly boss that would never fire me, Erik. And together we explore the very real challenges and problems that comes up when we're building the company Great.com. A company that will give away 100% of its profits to protect the environment. And this is an opportunity for you that are interested in entrepreneurship and personal development to get a behind-the-scenes look of what it feels like and is like to build a real company. And we will also update you on all of the progress that we are making. This is not something you will read in a book. This is the real story of how Great.com gets built. And like I said, I'm here with my super boss and very good friend, Erik. How are you today?
I was going in this conversation a bit worried because I was planning to fire you, obviously, in this podcast. And now you're making such a good job, so I might not. I'm very well today. I'm feeling excitement going. We haven't recorded a podcast in quite some time, so I'm excited to be back on the air. And this might be the last podcast we do without having a proper studio. So building a little bit of a mystery about that. And either way, I'm here with Emil, my amazing friend, who is a very loyal and hardworking individual in the team of Great. And it was the first one joining me into this. And he's usually the podcast host in this podcast. But since I said the first words, I guess I am the host today. Huh?
Yes, Commander.
And either way, this is the Becoming Great podcast, which is a podcast for people who believe that with entrepreneurship, we can make the world a better place. And today's episode is, just as Emil said, it's an update episode. And this time we've split it up in 2 different topics. First topic is that we're going to be talking about this charity podcast that we have recently launched. And it's called Great.com Talks With. You can find it in whatever favorite podcast app you have. And then we will also talk about a new job opening that we have with Great and that relates to this podcast. So that will be the second half of this. So first, we'll talk about our charity podcast. So we do have a business perspective with this, and we'll get back to this. But first, Emil, what is the purpose of this podcast?
Yes, I would love for you to check the podcast out. We got about 20 episodes out right now. And if you can't find it through Google, just look at the description for this episode and you will find a link to it. Well, the reason why we started it and what we want to help the charities with that we interview is so someone that is not familiar with their cause and the challenges they are facing can get a look into the charity and what they're doing. Because when we have been looking at websites to different charities organizations, it can be hard to understand what really it is that they do just from looking at their website and the challenges they're going through. And you can never see the people behind the organization, those fire souls, those that want to make the world a better place. And I think there's such a value in hearing them speak about their cause and why they care about it.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Was there specific organizations you've tried to understand in the past where you felt that this didn't make sense, or where did this come from?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially causes that have a more complex business model, I think we can do a huge favor for. So we at Great have donated to an organization that is called the Coalition for Rainforest Nation. And they are helping nations that have rainforest get more advantageous deals in the United Nations. So they're helping them negotiate. And this
super simple to understand.
It's so complex, and it's not easy to understand this from their website. We could only understand it, what they do, after having a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And it is easier when it's a conversation, I think, and someone is there to ask questions. Hey, I don't understand this. Could you please explain it in another way? So that's kind of my role, because I'm the host in that podcast too, together with another coworker, Spirit. And my role is to take the perspective of someone that is not aware. And I'm asking, can you make this easier? Can you simplify so that everyone that listens can understand what they're doing without, of course, making it oversimplified? So, because we still want to get into high value and interesting dialogues about complex topics.
I think that's actually a good example for me when this idea of a podcast about charity made sense. So we donated to Coalition for Rainforest Nations, and then they reached out to us and wanted to hear more about what we were doing. So we had this conversation with two of the founders. And to me, that was eye-opening, just to hear their story, hear where they were coming from and what they're actually doing, and having them explaining it made a big impact on me, feeling that I want to support this organization further and I actually understand what they're doing. And that's basically what this podcast will be then, like an insight in a conversation with the people behind an organization.
Yeah, and I think that is hugely important, because I know, at least when if I were to donate money somewhere or support an organization, I really do care about trust. Can I trust the organization? And that means, can I trust the people that are running the organization? I think that is a reason why you have had success when you've been doing campaigns on your Instagram and you said, I'm donating to this cause. And then other people choose to donate to the same cause because they trust you, not the organization. And that tells me that people are looking for a person they can trust. And they can see those people in this podcast. The Coalition for Rainforest Nation, for example, I really like the guy who runs that project. Super good storyteller. And at least I understood where he was coming from when we heard him speak.
Yeah. Yeah, and it creates a human interaction with what is otherwise more like a company. Like a charity organization is still like a company. And if I were to say Doctors Without Borders or Save the Children or whatever, it's really hard to get in contact with the human side of that, right? I don't know who is the human. And I would definitely, I believe that there is a big value in showing organizations like this from a perspective that people can understand.
We talked about this when we were on a walk the other day, that it's a very new thing that there are organizations that have no face on it. Like for all of human history, if you were to buy something from someone, you were buying it from a person. Or a king was like probably the biggest organizations there was, maybe the church. But Doctors Without Border, it's so vague for our human monkey brains.
Yeah. Okay, so sum up. What is the value of this podcast for a charity organization? What is the value that we want to bring?
Well, we want to spread their message, of course. We want to do it in an easy way that is easy to understand and interesting, even for someone that is not familiar with their cause. And we want to show the souls, the fire and passion of the people that are behind the organizations.
Well summed up.
So may I ask you then, what is the business purpose of this podcast?
Yes, ask me.
I indirectly asked you. Such good communication.
Yes. Yeah, so there are two sides of this. One is that we genuinely want to provide value to these organizations, and where we feel that this is a problem that we have been facing ourselves, not really understanding what the charities are doing. The other side of this relates to our business with Great. So we will be a website comparing all kinds of products in the future. And we're starting with comparing casinos. And we do that by ranking high up in Google. So if someone is looking for what casino can I trust, then we want to be the ones teaching you that and telling you that. And a big part about ranking high up in Google is getting links pointing towards your site. That a link to your site means in Google's eyes that someone trusts you and someone says that you are doing good things. And the business side of this podcast then is that we can help all of these charity organizations to be more visible, and they can also help us promote this podcast, which at the end of the day will help promote our entire business. And Great.com will give away all of its profits to charity. So whatever money we will make from this will go to protect the environment. So it becomes like a positive upward spiral with just things that benefit each other. That the bigger this podcast will be, the more we will help the organizations in the podcast, but the more the podcast will also support Great.com and our cause in general. Did I manage to explain that well?
Yeah, I think that made a lot of sense.
Nice. Then I'll suggest that we'll do a little trudelutt, which means like a little jingle. Jing, 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 jing.
Ding, ding. But we're not going to get our new sound guy until the next episode. So we have to make our own jingle right now. Bow, shaka, wow, ba-da-bow.
I love that you're going for the porn song from the Friends episode.
That's the only thing I think about when I think jingle. Wow,
yeah.
Wow. What is this song?
Yeah, okay. So we're getting this new audio guy in. We're going to start editing the podcast. And here there will be a good section and going to feel really professional. And still we're not really there yet. So we're trying to put ourselves into that mindset and have fun with it.
Overexcited. But let's hold it. Let's not open our Christmas present too early.
Okay, so let's talk about this job opening.
Can I just recommend an episode if someone wants to check out the podcast?
Smart. You're such a brilliant guy. Did you realize I was testing you now to see if you were going to get to keep your job or not?
Yes.
Okay, so please tell me, what if someone wants to check out the charity podcast, which episodes would you recommend them to listen to?
Something that I think is really cool is that we have managed to get interviews already with really high-level organizations. One that is my favorite is because that is my topic of all the organizations in the world. Because my heart question in charity is to help animals, animal welfare organizations. And the one that was ranked number one, together with 3 other organizations, but still they were ranked number 1 in the world by animal charity evaluators. They're called the Albert Schweitzer Foundation. Easy peasy name to just roll off your non-German tongue. Albert Schweitzer Foundation. And they talk about how to help, it's a German organization, and they talk about how to help animals, especially in factory farms, and how to work together with big corporations to help them make their processes more friendly for animals on a big scale.
So animal welfare is basically making the meat industry a less horrific environment. So if you can make the world a little bit better for all the cows in the factory, then
cows,
that's a good
chicken, fish, yes. And I like their approach because they're not standing outside of the industry pointing fingers. Instead, they're in there working together with companies and tries to find ways to make their business better by implementing processes that are better for the animals.
Okay, so for example, they might want to make the chickens' lives better somehow with bigger cages or bigger terms, whatever. And in that way would also benefit the business of the chicken farm, if that's a word.
Exactly.
So they would want to do this. So they want to find ways to help the companies to both make more money for that matter, but also create better environments for the animals.
Exactly.
Okay,
and that is episode number 15 of the new podcast, Albert Schweitzer Foundation. And one more that I really like, and this is more if you're into climate change and research that is being done about that. It's an organization that we support at Great that we have made, I think, a $10,000 donation to, that is called the Clean Air Task Force.
It's a really cool name.
It's task force. Like, I see people dressed in like cop clothes. It's something epic is going to happen. And they are doing, they're founding research, they're helping setting new policies and laws, and they are making sure that new technologies that could help us make more energy efficient systems, that they reach the market and that they reach the market quicker. So this episode is quite complex. We talk about nuclear power plant. We talk about new technology. So it's definitely more if you are into the nerdier side of climate change science. And if you are, I really like that episode. It's number 21.
Clean Air Task Force.
Yes.
I see, these kind of Ghostbusters guys running
Me
around
too,
and they
me
have
too.
some kind of a vacuum cleaner sucking up ghosts, but
Me
they
too.
suck out carbon dioxide from the world. Yeah.
That's a super cool analogy.
So episode 15 with Albert Schweitzer Foundation and episode 21 with Clean Air Task Force.
If you and I ever make a music video,
we're gonna have the vacuum
Ghostbusters.
cleaner.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if is the right word. When we make our music video.
So we were talking about a job opening.
Okay.
Obviously, video producing.
Yeah. So the jingle, jump chicka bow
Bow,
wow,
wow,
choo choo, and then let's
wow.
head on. Yes, Emil, please tell me about the job opening. What is it that we're looking for?
Well, this person is gonna get to hang out with me. I wanna point that out very clearly.
Okay, so that's the
how
first
big
and
that-
foremost thing.
Most important thing for this
So
job.
we could say that we're hiring a friend to you because you're lonely.
I have friends.
Okay, so the person gets to hang out with you. Great. What kind of role is this?
Well, we're gonna call it a podcast coordinator, and really it's a project manager role. It's gonna be a person that is responsible for making sure this new podcast works and flows and structures everything.
Okay, so will they record the podcast?
No. Don't be silly. Me and Spirit are the hosts.
Okay, so they're the hosts.
Yeah, so we have 2 hosts, and the reason we have 2 hosts is that our goal is to release 1 episode per day, which means that me and Spirit are probably gonna record 5 episodes each per week, so we can have a buffer and make this work, which means that there is a lot of things around the podcast. That means finding organizations, being in contact with them. We're going to write articles about every interview. So there's everything around the podcast, everything that is not having the actual interview.
Okay, so this person would reach out to find guests, build those relationships with them, book the time for the person to have the interview with you, maybe do some preparations for you or help out with that, then write a summary of this podcast, like write an article about this podcast afterwards.
Yeah, that we give to the organization, so we make it easier for them to post in their news sections or on their social media about this podcast.
Yeah,
so we're helping them out. Of course, uploading everything to all the podcast platforms, on YouTube.
Yeah, so basically doing all the admin stuff around there, posting this, making sure it comes up, sorting out someone who does the thumbnails. I'm not sure if that's going to be you. For you who don't know, Emil loves Photoshop, so he might be the thumbnail guy, but someone who actually coordinates and makes everything around the podcast happen.
Exactly, yeah. Because we want to scale this, and we want to be able to record 10 episodes per week. And that means that me and Spirit, as the hosts, are going to focus mainly on the interviews themselves.
Okay, so what do you think a regular day in this person's job would look like? What are they doing in a regular day?
Hopefully they are waking up and they really like their morning coffee. That puts a smile on their face, and they like that little quiet moment where they can spend some time in their inbox and really building relationships with all of these organizations. And they get an internal smile on their face when they know that the organizations have a really good experience of having co-created this with Great. So someone that enjoys a day of communication, structuring things, that cares about people, they're of course going to work together with me mainly to build processes for how to handle this whole structure and all the admin that is involved.
Okay, so someone who loves sending emails and talking to people, someone who's very structured and organized and can create processes about this.
Yeah.
Someone who can make sure that you show up on time, which isn't an easy task. Emil is a bit of a time optimist, and with a bit of, I mean very much so.
I value spontaneity. Now, it's very good if this person enjoys writing as well. Writing skills, I think, is going to be very important.
Yeah, that's crucial. So do we need them to be a native English speaker then? Because that's the language they're going to be writing mostly?
At least very proficient, I would say.
Okay, that's good.
Because we're going to write articles about every podcast. So maybe writing the articles, it's something that this podcast coordinator can outreach then to someone that is a native speaker.
Yeah.
Outsource. And but still it would be helpful to have at least very good English skills.
Good. So if someone's working with great, what does it take for someone to work with great?
Great suck-up skills to Erik Bergman. Check. And of course our other values that I'm now forced to say. No. What I love about Great is that we have managed to build a team of people that are starting to more and more feel safe to be transparent and share how they feel about their work. Even if that truth might be that they're struggling to find joy about something, or that they're feeling stress, or that it's people that dare to speak their truth. We really value honesty. Emotionally intelligent coworkers. People that are purpose-driven.
So would you say that Great is like a people-first kind of organization?
Yes, for sure.
How does that play out?
Well, for example, when we started building all the admin for this podcast, our coworker spirit got very overwhelmed because we had the goal of releasing 3 episodes per week. And that ended up being so much back and forth to different organizations because we didn't have the processes in place yet, that he felt a lot of anxiety. He felt a lot of resistance even opening up his computer in the morning. And he brought that up in our Slack, and then we had a whole meeting that could have been spent on goal setting or something that would help the business. But instead we took a whole weekly meeting helping Spirit to feel better about where he was in the process and taking things off his plate and helping him out.
So the whole team gathered around Spirit to support
him and supported him and appreciated him for raising his concern that, hey guys, maybe I'm running at a tempo right now that is unhealthy for me. I cannot keep this up. Doing my work in this way is creating a negative association for me with Great. And it's a high importance that is encouraged in this organization. So no one is creating those negative associations.
Yeah, and I can see how if someone were falling behind in organizations I've been involved with before, they would probably not feel supported to lift that, but instead trying to work as hard as possible and maybe quit because they don't want to show their vulnerability and say, I can't do this. Instead, it would run away.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that describes well the organization in general. So what are some technical things about this role? What's the salary that we're looking to pay here?
We are looking to pay 36,000 euros per year for this role. And that is the same salary that most of the team have right now, except for you that has no salary and Joachim that has as
72.
72, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a podcast episode about our salary structures as well, but I don't know which number it is. So for you who are interested, go on a little treasure hunt.
Yes.
And it's a freelance contract, right? So it's fully remote.
Fully remote, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have an office, so people are spread everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are in Stockholm, maybe you can get to meet me and Erik in person. But yeah, it's a remote organization. You can be anywhere.
Good. So what challenges have you run into so far with this project?
Oh man, in the beginning, when we didn't have any processes, we didn't have any of the email templates, anything like that. We didn't really understand how to go from first getting in contact with an organization to an article hopefully published on their website. There was so much admin overload and lack of processes, lack of structure, overwhelm. Now we're more and more getting those in place. So when we have this person coming on, a lot of that work will already have been somewhat taken care of. But in the beginning, without structure and processes, this was tricky.
When are we looking to have someone on board?
Today.
Today?
Can you start right now? So as soon as possible, really.
Okay, so I'll sum that up a little bit. So we're looking for a podcast project manager, someone who's in charge of everything around the podcast, but not recording the actual episodes. Someone who will build all the relationships with charity organizations and also help out to create promotional material around this afterwards with like articles and summaries, and also talk with the organizations about this to help them share it. And it's a fully remote role, so you can be anywhere in the world. It's a full-time position. It's a freelance contract, so not technically an employment, but a freelance agreement. And the salary would be 36,000 per year. And we're looking for someone who loves sending emails, who is a positive and social person, and very organized.
Yes, and could you talk a little bit about your vision for the team that is doing this project? It looks in the future.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good point. So this is what we're looking for today. And the way I envision this podcast developing, so we're currently doing 1, 2, 3 episodes per week. And the intention is, as Emil said before, doing 7 per week. But the intention is also to get as much exposure as possible for this podcast and get a lot of blogs and newspapers and sites in general to write about this and help this get as much exposure and links as possible. So in the future, if this turns out really, really well, I'm seeing that this person that we're hiring now builds a support team for him or herself with 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 people who will also help out with this process and send a lot of messages to different websites, help create buzz around every episode, basically. So kind of a PR team around this podcast that will be managed by this person. So if this person have some previous team building skills or recruitment skills or leadership skills, that's a plus. It's not a must, but it's definitely a plus. Yeah, I think that sums up the future. So this will obviously be the world's biggest podcast. We're going to beat the crap out of Joe Rogan. And no, the world's second biggest podcast. This becominggreat.com is going to be the biggest one, obviously. Yeah.
If you're a nerd about communication, that is also going to be helpful in this environment. Because me and Spirit, the other host, we are for sure. Yeah. And everyone else in the organization.
That was everything about the job opening, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So please, let's round this up and tell me, what can someone do who likes this podcast and want to support us?
Yes, my lord.
And with this, I mean the one we're talking in right now.
The becominggreat.com podcast. Well, if you find value from our episodes and you wish more hungry entrepreneurs that wants to make the world better would benefit to listening to our conversations, the best thing you can do to help us out is to go to your podcast app and click the subscribe button, which maybe you have already done, and in that case we're super grateful. The reason this is a good way to help us out is that if we get into podcast top lists or not, is not dependent on the total amount of views. It's dependent on how many people subscribe compared to how many listeners we have. So if you are subscribing, you are greatly helping our chances to get into different top lists. And that we very much appreciate.
Well, thank you. It's a good episode. Have a lovely day, my friend.
I had fun. Good to be back potting. And I'll see you in the studio. Bye.
Yes.
If you think you're the right person for this job, please send us an email to jobs@great.com or go to great.com/jobs to read more.